What's going on, ladies and gentlemen of the internet? Welcome to the Movieverse Podcast show where we review movies. No video this time around, audio only. Having some internet problems. We live in, the Arctic, so we had some internet issues, but we're doing it live. In the words of, who's that politician? We're doing it live. Anyways.
I have no idea.
Okay, yes. References that no one gets. But yeah, we're reviewing X-Men Days of Future Past, and I'm joined with Big Nasty Productions here today. Say hello to the internet.
What up? How's it going?
I know we're, once again, not too timely on this review either, but we've seen X-Men Days of Future Past. We rather enjoyed it. How many times have you seen it now?
I think I've seen it three times now.
3 times, so yes. I've only seen it once, but I assure you, this review will go in depth. This is my favorite X-Men movie in a long-ass time.
Easily.
And probably since X2. I haven't rewatched X2 in a while, so it might not hold up to time that well.
Not compared to this one, just because of the fact of when it came out. But
yeah, of course.
It still is probably the second best.
Yeah.
Opposed to the first.
You like the first X-Men the best?
Besides the first 2 X-Men and this, Days of Future Past, there's no other X-Men film that are even acceptable in the
I liked First Class.
Shouldn't even been made.
Yeah,
First Class I'll give some credit to.
I liked First Class a bit. It was kind of like a random offshoot. I didn't really expect to see a sequel to it, even though, of course, there's a sequel to it. But this is the X-Men movie everyone's kind of been waiting for. They matched the First Class crew up with the X-Men crew that you may remember from X1, 2, and 3. And, of course, Wolverine is in there. He's got to be in there.
Well, it was almost like a redemption piece for Fox because the last few X-Men movies they've made have been just awful.
It was. I didn't mind the second Wolverine movie as much, but the first one was pretty bad. With I thought they wasted a lot of characters in that one,
including Deadpool,
Gambit, Deadpool, etc. They just blew it on those characters.
Yep.
X3 was a bit on the ridiculous side.
Yeah, that was pretty awful. They could have handled the Phoenix a lot better.
Yes, I did like the inclusion of Kelsey Grammer as Beast. I'm not sure what movie that came in. I think that
was 3.
I think that was a perfect choice for Beast.
Yeah, and from number 2 to 3, they actually lost Nightcrawler.
Yeah,
and pretty much switched it out with Beast, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
And then same with they brought Juggernaut in.
Yeah, because Nightcrawler
and Angel.
Yeah, Nightcrawler stole the show in X2, right?
Yeah,
he did that awesome.
Kurt Wagner.
Yes, that awesome White House assassination scene from X2 was just awesome.
Which I wish Nightcrawler would just be like that because the rest of the time he's kind of a whiny bitch.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's a whiny bitch in X2 as well, but he's almost kills the president. Mm. Anyways, there's been. The point we're getting at is there's a fuck of a lot of X-Men films out there, and this is about at the top. Probably second for me. I like X2 a whole hell of a lot.
I'd say this is number 1. X2 would definitely come in second, with the original X-Men being number 1.
Yeah.
After that, I'd say probably the new Wolverine.
Mm-hmm. I think the first Wolverine was my least favorite of all of them.
I'd say X3. X3 to me was worse than Wolverine. Because Origins. X-Men Origins.
Yeah, that's what it's called, sorry.
Origins is still, to me, better than X3. Because you still had the inclusion of a lot of the guys that are from Wolverine or X-Men stories, but also deal more exclusively with Wolverine. Guys like Fred Dukes, the Blob, and obviously Sabretooth. And I preferred Liev Schreiber's Sabretooth to the original Sabretooth from X-Men. Mm-hmm. I believe he's just a stunt actor, similar to the guy that was playing Toad in that movie.
Yep, pretty much.
So, I just think it's still better than X3, because that was just absolutely awful. Aside from Vinnie Jones's just horrible Juggernaut, everything else was just all over the place.
Vinnie Jones. Yeah, that was a mistake. Yeah, like I said, Kelsey Grammer was the only thing I liked. And I really liked that whole Magneto. I just like when Magneto moves giant shit. So when he moved that bridge, that was pretty cool. But First Class trumps that with Magneto moving a goddamn stadium.
Yeah. Or Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past, my bad. Yes, that is the movie we're trying to talk about here. We keep jumping back into the X-Men timeline.
It needs to be discussed.
Of course it does, because this is literally called Days of Future Past, and it's all about,
all of them. Yeah,
it's about every...
all of the films.
It's about every movie leading up to this point, and it's kind of changed them in a way that they have almost unlimited options after this in some respects to bringing back old characters, new characters. They could go back to the Future Past ones and do more stories there because that's all changed now. they created like a similar to what J.J. Abrams did with the new Star Trek. Like he kicked off an alternate timeline to kind of like, you know,
build upon himself. Well,
yeah,
even if you could compare it to the book, it's similar in that fashion where it's not actually the same story in the book at all. While it still does deal with the future being a desolate sort of, you know, barren wasteland of mutants being hunted by sentinels. It doesn't deal with the story in the same way that the film does. But at the same time, I feel that there's actually a larger appeal to the way the film does it than the book.
Probably,
Because in the book for Days of Future Past, but I mean, I believe it came out in 86, I think? Maybe like earlier, I could be wrong on the year. But either way, the film has more of an appeal, I think, to a wider audience, kind of similar to how Captain America, the Winter Soldier did. I think that it changes the story well enough that it's still relatable to comic fans and to new audiences.
Yeah, I mean, again, harkening back to Star Trek, that's what they did there too, and it's
exactly.
It's a very fine line that these directors and filmmakers walk when they do things like this, because you have such a hardcore, you know, fan base. Like, you know, Cody's sitting here with his X-Men shirt literally on as we speak, because you have such a you know, big fan base behind it that you don't want to piss off, but at the same time, you know, you have to make it appeal to try and make it appeal to a wider audience at the same time, because that's how you get paid.
Well, and I'll admit that when I first heard that they were doing the book Days of Future Past, I was a little worried about how they were gonna make the formula for this, because of the fact that there were so many characters in Days of Future Past, the book, that they've never introduced into the X-Men franchise. And I mean, there's a lot of guys and women, especially, that are main characters in that series that they never put in.
Keep talking.
So, either way, I think that it still works on a separate level, and it's not going to completely satisfy people who are fans of the comic book more so, because of the fact that there are massive, massive loopholes in the way that they transferred characters from the book to the film, whereas in the book, it's Rachel Summers who's the one that's performing this telepathic procedure where she sends her consciousness back. And in the movie, it's Kitty Pryde. Meanwhile, in the book, it's Kitty Pryde who gets sent back, whereas in the movie, it's Wolverine. Yeah. And it kind of makes no sense that someone whose powers are just to phase through walls can somehow telepathically link your body to your form or to your younger self.
Yeah, I don't know.
As far-fetched as it is in the first place. But,
well, we are talking about mutants here after all.
Obviously.
But it makes more sense for me to send Logan back just because he is like the character in X-Men, right?
Yeah, for the film franchise.
For the franchise, sure. It's I would say he's the header of this franchise with Ian and
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart, thank you. Blanked on that. Those guys are like the pinnacle of this X-Men series, I think.
Well, so, I actually think that Fassbender is even stealing that from McKellen, whereas I don't think James McAvoy is really living up to
not
Patrick
quite,
Stewart's,
no.
It almost seems James McAvoy just kind of wants to do his own thing.
Yeah, McAvoy, I don't know. McAvoy's yet to be proven for me. He's still a young actor. But he's no Patrick Stewart. No. Patrick Stewart's like a classically trained theater actor. Everything he says sounds like it's written
and I think that's what gives him and Ian McKellen such a good chemistry together, because they're both from that background.
And that's why they're good friends in real life. It's because that they are from that classical English theater kind of background where everything they say sounds like it might have been written by Shakespeare, you know, even though he's playing Charles Xavier, a friggin' paralyzed mutant with the power to control minds.
Well, that's one of the best things about this film as opposed to the others, is from a nostalgic standpoint, you still get, you know, the classic style performances from your Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen as Magneto and Professor X, whereas you also get the Fassbender and McAvoy combination, although I feel that they kind of let off the trail from what they were doing with First Class. They could have almost had a piece in between it.
The chemistry between Fassbender and McAvoy isn't as sharp as between Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, I think, anyway.
I would agree.
But I think Fassbender plays a hell of a Magneto, though. Like, he definitely stands on his own as Magneto. Just because he's friggin' Michael Fassbender, like, I would not be surprised if he is the next, like, legacy actor, you know, like, full-on 20 years of just making excellent films. I would not be surprised to see Fassbender, you know, step into that light. But I'm still glad he, you know, wants to risk doing stuff like playing Magneto. Apparently playing in the new Assassin's Creed movie. I don't know if that's going to ever take off the ground, though. But I like actors who do, you know, quote-unquote silly roles like this.
Yeah.
That still bring...
But still take it seriously,
Yeah, bring the caliber that they do. And he definitely did. He was my favorite character in this film, is Magneto for sure. He steals the show, even though there's some great. You don't expect Quicksilver to be as awesome as he is in this film.
No, he
either.
actually. I wish he was in it more. It was kind of disappointing that he was only in that small bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is. He's only in it for about say 20-ish minutes.
Yeah,
Quicksilver,
there.
but it's during one of the best scenes of the
Easily,
film.
I think that is the best scene of the film.
Yeah, and he steals the show. They for those who don't know, how would you describe Quicksilver's powers? Like, it's just...
he moves 150 times the speed of a normal human.
Okay, yeah, that's... so he flashes around, basically.
Essentially, yes.
Yes, he can do a lot in a little time, basically. Not quite teleport, but fast enough that it seems like teleporting to the human eye. And he just steals this amazing scene that... it's probably the best, like, filmic way to show a superpower I think I've ever seen. Just because it slows down time, and he's going at normal speed, but obviously we're going 150 times slower.
The Pink Floyd music choice is absolutely perfect.
And the Pink Floyd music choice, and the way like he's just like poking people and messing, and he's just like moving bullets around in the air. Like, it's just, that is my favorite. It's only like a 2-minute, 2-3 minute scene.
But the cinematography of that scene is just absolutely beautiful.
It's amazing, yeah, because everything's slowed down. I have no idea how they accomplished that. It was awesome.
No, yeah, that looks like it would have proved to be rather difficult.
That would have been a difficult scene to orchestrate for sure. But Quicksilver, definitely. And the actor they chose to play him, I can't remember that kid's name, but he's pretty funny.
I know him mostly from Kick-Ass. And
yeah,
from,
Evan Peters.
Yeah, and he's from American Horror Story.
Yep, American Horror Story. He plays the
he's played a couple guys. He's played the dead kid in the first
season.
season.
I was going to say he can't
played
really...
Buddy in the Insane Asylum.
Yeah, with American Horror Story, you can't
then
really
he
say
played
he played...
pretty much Frankenstein.
Yeah, he's
For Frankenstein's monster, I apologize.
He's pretty funny. Most people know him as the what is he? The friend of the main character in Kick-Ass?
Yeah, he's the Todd in the first Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
I don't know why he wasn't back from Kick-Ass 2 when Todd has somewhat more of a role as ass kicker, but
I don't know either. But he definitely stole the show. I also really liked Mystique in this film.
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence to me I think this is actually one of her best films aside from American Hustle.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I did like how it almost seemed like a little bit of a stiff upper lip to American Hustle in the bar scene when she's looked just like Jennifer Lawrence, but with the fur thing, she almost looks exactly like her character.
Yeah,
from
I thought
American
that
Hustle.
too. Yeah,
It seemed almost like a little, just a little wink at him or something.
Yeah, she plays the awesome Mystique this time around, and
there's a lot more personality to her character, I find, in this than the original, where she's more of a kiddie sort of character.
She's definitely matured a lot since First Class, and I like, no disrespect to Rebecca Romaine, but Jennifer Lawrence is my preferred Mystique for sure.
When you go to acting talent,
pure talent, obviously they're both beautiful ladies, but that's not important when you're talking acting chops.
Especially when you're in essentially a full costume.
Yeah, she's basically painted the entire movie. Yeah. She spends a lot of the time in the blue, her natural self, if you will.
The biggest surprise performance for me in this was Peter Dinklage.
Peter Dinklage,
what I found amazing is how much already we know. He's an amazing actor, station agent, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Obviously, his cameo in Elf was still hilarious.
Yeah, he's definitely making waves right now. He's on top of his game.
But for being someone that's that small, I honestly almost didn't notice in some of the scenes until you see him compared to the other actors.
And that is that's one thing I'll say about Peter Dinklage, is because you don't, as ignorant as it may sound, you definitely notice he's a dwarf. You notice his size, but you like his acting, just like
it's just such a high caliber.
It's
not like the guy, and I apologize that I don't know his name. If he's dead, rest in peace. I know he doesn't live that long, but the guy from Willow. Or, the guy that was always in Seinfeld with Kramer's buddy.
Yeah,
he's just, it's such a different type of acting that it seems as though he's just got so much more chops. Yeah. You kind of wonder if he was a normal sized person, what kind of roles would he get? Because I feel like he'd be number one guy.
Yeah, it was you that told me, like, there's no question he will get every good dwarf role from here until the end of his life. They I don't know, Star Wars, anything. Put him in anything, I'd watch it. It was you, obviously, who was telling me that the character he plays,
Bolivar Trask.
Yeah, Bolivar Trask in the comic lore is isn't a midget.
Yeah, no,
right?
he's just a normal sized guy.
Yeah, and this
Mind you, he's a nerd, so he's a nerd scientist sort of guy, so he's so much smaller.
Similar, yeah. But this might be the first time that he was cast literally because of his chops.
Yeah,
and not
that's
because
a good point, actually.
not because of his, because he fit the bill of playing a. Like in Game of Thrones, for example, that is the character of Tywin Tyrion.
Oh, he is supposed to be.
Yeah,
oh, okay,
the character is a dwarf and an imp, and that's woven into his story, kind of.
Okay.
And he just rocks the shit out of that. But this is the first time that had no relevance to, there's not a.
Well, and then when you think about even the ones that we mentioned, Station Agent, he does play a dwarf. And
that has something to do with his character, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But this time around, it's not even mentioned that he's smaller or anything, which is kind of incredible. And he does a damn fine job. Like, he's suitably hateable.
Yeah, if they didn't have scenes where you saw him directly in front of or beside another character, you would never really clue in except for the fact of his features,
Yeah, exactly.
His acting ability is on par, if not greater than half or the majority of the cast in the film.
He does steal the scenes he's in. He's plays a very... very dislikable, antagonist in this film, kind of. He is the creator of the Sentinel Project, and the ripple effect he has on the X-Men universe, almost extincts the mutants, and he, you can feel the reason. They don't go too much into the reasons why he's so hell-bent on hating mutants. That might have something they could have played with his him being a dwarf in that way a little bit.
Well, they do talk about that essentially when he says when William Stryker's character says the character of William Stryker says to him, well, you really hate mutants, don't you? And he says, no, on the contrary, I admire them.
Yeah,
exactly. The things they can do. And then he says it's the common struggle of mankind is to stop or fight extinction, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's essentially the same sort of motivations that he has in the comic book, is that he just realizes that they're much better, stronger, faster, you know what I mean? They're far more capable than humans, and eventually they're going to wipe us out.
Yeah, and I do like that because it's a way better reason than most supervillains and bad guys have, because it's usually just like, I'm a bad guy, or my family got killed, blah blah blah. This one's just pure science. He's like, look, these guys are gonna wipe us out one day. We should probably think about doing
and it
something.
is a legitimate threat. So I mean, he's not.
Oh, if mutants were real, right?
William Stryker, on the other hand, is similar to Bolivar Trask in those sort of motivations, except he also has more of a hatred because of the fact that his son is a mutant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
he's almost more ashamed or trying to just do something to, like, as if he's punishing himself for his son, or
Yeah. Well, fucking Peter Dinklage stole the show in most of the scenes he was in. Like, it was a very awesome performance on his part. And he definitely plays, like, a vital character to this whole story, given that he creates these the Sentinel program, these giant robots designed to hunt down and exterminate mutants.
Yeah, and as far as other characters go, I don't think Storm should have spoken at all. Or should have spoken at all, sorry.
She was unnecessary. They did bring Halle Berry back as Storm, which
but I don't think she should have spoken since the first movie, because in the first movie, Storm has... I think Halle Berry is the downfall of the entire franchise. Because if you watch from the first movie, Halle Berry plays the proper character of Storm. She has somewhat of a more African-sounding accent. Mm-hmm. She doesn't seem to really kind of understand everybody else's sort of customs. Whereas then you transfer into X2 and on, and it's just she just throws that right out the window.
Yeah, she's just basically Halle Berry. Like, what up, I'm Storm.
She's Halle Berry, but throws weather at people.
Halle Berry is not the best actress in the world by any means. I don't think.
No, she got lucky for Monsters Ball.
I agree. I think she's better than some. She's definitely...
I would agree.
She's definitely gorgeous and kind of, like, she fits the look of Storm with her short white hair and her eyes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, obviously. She definitely looks like her,
Yeah, but she didn't add much to this film.
No.
I'll say that. Because even there's... the majority of this film is spent in the past, and... somewhat, parts here and there at the beginning and end are spent in the future.
Yeah.
And Halle Berry's character Storm is only in the future part, so she doesn't seem all that vital really, but she's there. They definitely brought her back. That's one thing about this film. Besides, I can't think of too many people they didn't bring back for this film, like of the core X-Men cast. They brought back almost everybody in one respect or another, like even as just Jean Grey's cameos at the end.
The only ones that I could think of from the first three movies would be
Rebecca Romaine.
Rebecca Romaine and Nightcrawler.
Yep, those are the only. Otherwise, they bring back damn near everyone.
Because even Kelsey Grammer as Beast is shown at the end of the film.
Yep, they Cyclops. they're all back in like most of them are just like cameo
Even people
roles.
like that Jean Grey.
Jean Grey, beautiful Jean Grey. Yeah, so they bring back
Famke Janssen.
yeah. Oh yes, Lady in Red. But they bring back pretty much everybody, even just for little roles, and it's good to see. It's like a very nice. This is a very nice climax of the X-Men series, I think, incorporating years and years of work of movies, kind of similar to the movies that led up to the Avengers, stuff like that. It has a similar like feel that all these movies led to this one. And I really
they did a great job of not having a plan and then returning that into what seemed like a plan.
Yeah, exactly, because I didn't know how they were going to make all these characters work, and
it didn't seem like it was possible, especially with this such massive switch of where First Class wasn't Jean Grey, Scott Summers,
Oh yeah, exactly.
Because originally it should have technically been Iceman, Jean Grey, Scott Summers, Beast, and Angel, and that's the original X-Men. And I don't even think Angel is technically original. I think he was one of the first secondary characters introduced.
Yeah, that's another one they screwed up in X3.
But that would be interesting, because if they are having a system in place where they're trying to somehow rework that into a new path in their franchise, they could, with the appearance of Apocalypse at the end of the film, have where Apocalypse and Mr. Sinister turn him into the Dark Angel, or when they take over with Scott Summers and essentially drive Cyclops crazy. So that'll be interesting how they work Apocalypse, which is set to release in 2016, I believe.
I think you're right. Yeah, Apocalypse is a different kind of character than we've seen pretty much this whole way through.
Yeah, he's essentially a demigod.
Yeah, he's kind of like what Thor did. He's just that extra step into the supernatural that X-Men wants to take, I guess. But not that mutants aren't supernatural, but you know what I mean. Going that extra step into breaking realism, basically. I'm fine with that if they can pull it off. I know Apocalypse is supposed to be a legendary character in the Marvel universe, so hopefully they don't screw it up.
Well, what's interesting is that Apocalypse actually debuted in X Factor, not X-Men, so I don't know if they're going to try and somehow bring some of those characters in, because that's where they could work in guys like Banshee and those, even though they said in the one past, in Days of Future Past, he mentions that Banshee's dead.
Yeah, that's why Banshee didn't return. That's why his little suit thing was in that.
That was Havoc's suit that you see in
Havoc,
you see Havoc. I believe her name is Angel. You see her one wing?
Yeah.
I think they call her Angel, don't they?
Something like that, yeah.
You see her one wing. And then, obviously, Magneto's helmet.
So we've covered most of these people. McAvoy, we said, was a little bit...
He was probably the weaker point of all the main characters, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, the guy who
Hugh
plays...
Jackman does a fantastic job as Wolverine.
Yeah, I guess we could cover Hugh Jackman, who's, even though this movie revolves around Magneto and Professor X, it's Hugh Jackman leading the show again. For, of the 6 or 7 X-Men films, he's been in the lead of 4 or 5 of them, so... And there's good reason for it. He is Wolverine, as far as I'm concerned. Like, he's the perfect Logan. He is the...
Aside from being over 6 feet tall, instead of being 5'3", I would agree with you.
Sure.
I mean, even when the original X-Men film was announced, one of my biggest concerns was what they're going to do for Wolverine, because you don't see too many, jacked guys at 5'3", except for maybe a Jason Statham. But
yeah, there you go.
It's interesting how Wolverine and Hugh Jackman sort of it's the way he works it. It almost makes you forget that Wolverine is supposed to be a short character, even though that's half the reason his name is Wolverine. Yeah,
because Wolverine's supposed to... Yeah, I know what you're getting at, but yeah, he is like, I don't know. His fit for this role is similar to Downey Jr.'s for Tony Stark. Like,
I would agree. It's
just perfect. Yeah, there's not a single actor on Earth I could think that would play Logan better, and he likes it too. Like, you can tell he'll come back for any movie, anytime. He just loves being Logan. I imagine when he wakes up in the morning, he doesn't even have to comb his hair. It just automatically does the Wolverine thing. Like, he just loves that character, and it's his character. So,
and thankfully, since he got to work with Bryan Singer again, it seems like they brought a lot more of the more Logan style of the feel that you get when you read a comic about Wolverine, as opposed to the Origins film or the Wolverine.
Yeah.
Film. You get a far different character. It seems the way that they transition it.
really, they don't go too over the top with his, like, you know, his sarcasm and
his feelings.
His feelings, that's for damn sure. Like,
the lecture part with Professor X, yeah, that's a little much, but
it's a little much. But given what happened between those two characters in the past, I get it. But for main part, he's just like, you know, kicking ass and taking names more than ever in this film. You know, it's not too much about, you know, love interests and crap like that. There's no time for that because this is a busy movie, and there's no time for like secondary plot lines like that.
And that right there is one of the best parts of the thing, is that this is one of the busiest superhero films in terms of not only action but story as well.
This is like
flows well with the action.
Yeah, focused is what I would say.
That's a better term for it.
It's not wasting time with, you know, love stories between, you know, various people, various X-Men, you know, and pretty much every prior X-Men movie that's been snuck in there somewhere. And I get why it has to be in there somewhere, you know.
Yeah, there's obviously little quips still. Magneto and Mystique, Professor X and Mystique, Beast and Mystique.
Yeah, that's
weird, actually, when you think about it that way.
This is weird. This is the point I wanted to make. Poor Jennifer Lawrence in X-Men First Class. Jennifer Lawrence, gorgeous. She can't seem to get James McAvoy's character, Fassbender's character, and Beast. Like, nobody wants her. Well, Beast kind of wants her, but...
just not when she's blue.
Yeah, Magneto and Xavier don't. I'm just like, what is wrong with all these people? I don't know if they're, you know, they don't like the blue, or, you know, Jennifer Lawrence isn't their cup of tea, but something's off with that. I don't know.
So I think another beauty of this film is the combination of that they actually had, where we have Matthew Vaughn, the director, and I believe he was also a co-writer on First Class.
He was.
They had him working on this as well with Bryan Singer, especially in the writing aspect. I think that was probably the best push in the right direction, because even when you watch First Class as opposed to X-Men, X2, and X3, even though Singer didn't do X3, but X-Men and X2 at least, it has somewhat of a different feel, and Matthew Vaughn, who also directed Kick-Ass, seems to have that more down-to-earth style with comic-based films, where it's not 100% over the top all the time. It's not all about just the powers. It's about, you know, more of the connections and relationships too. Whereas Bryan Singer had a bit of that, but you can see the amped up level of it in this, how they mesh together, how it's all done. They have lots of shots of the teamwork style of X-Men fighting, which is great, because that's one of the main points of the comic, right? Is that these guys are so much better together.
That's why it's a team, right? Exactly. That's why the Avengers was so much fun.
Exactly,
because there's something like when Mystique takes out the army base, and, you know, you got Toad in there and a few other guys just all throw out their random powers just for that one shot.
I wish they played a bigger part in the movie. I wish they played more of a role in the movie.
Yeah, I agree.
That Toad looks cool. I thought that was the best conceptualized Toad I've seen.
He definitely looked the part, but at the end he's just working in a diner. You know? Yep, just like me, making some food. You know, I'm a mutant. It's, according to the internet, which is always a credible resource, X-Men Apocalypse, scheduled for 2016. They're going to get Bryan Singer to come back and direct it.
Perfect.
That sounds like a great idea, because this is a damn fine X-Men film.
Yeah, in my opinion, easily the finest in the franchise, and I would say on a high level of competition with Disney's Marvel films of late.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's actually a very good way to put it. Because
I don't know if I'd say it's better than something like the Avengers, but I'd definitely say it's at least on par.
Because Marvel's been leading the superhero race for this last 10 years or so. And Spider-Man's tried its darndest, but they didn't really get it. X-Men has tried its darndest, and I think this is one that stands alone with, you know, Avengers, things like that. Because this kind of feels like the Avengers of the X-Men world, because it's all these movies coming together and so many different characters coming together. You know, it's great. I quite enjoyed this film. Because it's part history piece, it's part apocalyptic film. Yeah. Like, it's just, you get so much good stuff in this X-Men film. I would argue you to, you know, say you wasted your $8 going to see this film, because this is a good way to spend $8.
Yeah, and as if you can pardon the inconsistencies, like we said, with things as far as the time travel goes, how nothing changes until he wakes up.
Well, there's some definite liberties. I mean, here, this is like, you know, prime talk out of my ass speak coming up right here. But the whole, you know, the time travel stuff didn't quite. There was some definite liberties taken with time
Yeah.
travel, and I know I sound like a dink saying I know how time travel works, but because I don't. But I'm just saying there's some liberties taken with it. It's like, why isn't it till he wakes up that the changes are, you know, set into place? Why aren't they changing the whole way? How can, like you pointed out, how can Kitty Pryde
send someone's consciousness
Yes.
back when all her only power is to phase through
and
solid objects.
it seemed like the very next scene, because one scene it was just like, I can only send people back a couple days, a week, whatever. Just like, oh, what about a couple decades? Next scene, she just does it.
Well, the only reason that they had any sort of explanation for that was the fact of Professor X saying to send him back, and her saying that because of what she does, it'll only send you back a certain amount of time, or it'll tear your brain apart.
Oh yeah,
That's why
yeah.
Logan volunteers himself, because obviously his brain.
These are
will repair
regenerative
itself.
properties. Yeah, okay, I guess.
But
that
even
makes
still,
sense.
that makes no sense, because if Kitty Pryde's hands are on the side of your head, or she's using whatever that little magic stuff in front of her is supposed to be, I would assume it's supposed to be like a telepathic energy, which she does not have that power.
It's just magic. We'll call it magic.
Because I mean, she would just phase through your skull. I just that's the only thing that bothered me, and just the fact that they never even bothered trying to explain it.
Yeah.
Why not have Professor X just be the guy that does it then? At least he's
Yeah,
a
there
known
you go.
telepath. It would have worked well.
He's a telepath. That's what he does, right? He touches
Yeah.
your brain and he sees your entire past.
Mind you, Rachel Summers is a somewhat, I would say, on par or even more superior telepath when it goes to the future and whatnot. When you get Cable and
Yeah, all those fun guys. Yeah, well, there's definite liberties taken, obviously. I would argue it was a little too easy to break a man out of the Pentagon,
Yeah, that
considering
was-
he was wanted for killing John F. Kennedy. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't a walk in the park to get him out, but it just seemed like it was too easy considering it's supposed to be the most, you know, secure place on Earth.
Whiplash.
Yeah. So that was where we got the Quicksilver scene, which is just, I will buy this movie just to watch that scene
Yeah.
in slow motion because it's awesome, or at least see how they set it up. Even Whiplash. Yeah, it's great. So I think we covered all the characters, all the main characters. Anyways, they, like I said, they bring back a shitload of people just as for like little cameos. Bishop, Iceman, you know, Rogue. All those guys are here and
Yeah,
there.
they got Colossus.
Colossus,
They got Blink,
Blink.
Warpath, which they brought in. Which I wasn't too keen on the way they did Warpath, because Warpath in the comics is a far more imposing figure.
Hence, well, with the name Warpath.
Yeah, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But you know, it was still done well enough, especially for people who they're not really massively popular characters. So, you know, the general audience wouldn't probably not even know who they are. This would probably be their first introduction to them. So it works on that standard, especially if you're going to be bringing them into future films.
Yeah, I agree.
But, you know, being a comic book nerd, I obviously have my
Yeah.
little kind of
You have your quips.
clips with or little problems with comic book films, if you will, just in the way that they
And every
structure
goddamn one of them.
characters.
Yeah, there's some things they have to change, and there's some things they change to be safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Patrick Stewart as Professor X was probably the most obvious decision on the face of the planet when
Oh
it comes
yeah.
to filmmaking.
I don't see how anyone.
You look at a
could-
picture. in the
Yeah, you
comic
look at
and
a
you
picture.
him, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, he was actually on Stephen Colbert, and they pulled up a picture of Patrick Stewart taken 20 years ago, and one taken like a couple days ago. Yeah, he looks like he barely aged. He's just like, what? He's like, do you drink the blood of young children or something? Like, how do you maintain?
He's like Vlad the Impaler. Or
Yeah,
something.
because he's got that Morgan Freeman style. Like, he's been, you know, in his late 40s for 30 years. That's just how he seems. But yeah, all the power to him if he was, you know, bathing in the blood of virgins or something. I don't know. Whatever you got to do, I suppose. But we covered all the acting, and I don't know, do you want a chance to take a run at some of your comic book quips, some of the things that you didn't like, per se?
Like I said, the only it's almost a completely separate story as from the comics and how they handle the arrival of the Sentinels and the scenario surrounding that.
Mm-hmm.
That was fine with me. I actually, like I said, I think that they did a better job structuring the story in the film than they did in the comic book, except for the fact of who they had doing sending Logan back, vice versa, to sending Kitty back.
That seems like the biggest change.
And with Kitty, it kind of made more sense because she was sent back to when she first came to the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
Okay.
Logan kind of
Was sent in a random
he sent
time,
to
yeah.
the random time where he didn't really know them
Yeah.
The only thing he ever said to Professor Xavier, as he so eloquently puts it, is "fuck off."
Don't want your future. Yeah, well, at least they remembered him from a small cameo in First Class.
That was the thing. That also, to me, that's the type of things that bug me, where you just try really hard to make people think like, "Oh no, don't forget this is connected to this," because it's supposed to be, several years later. You're not going to remember some random dude in a bar who just said "fuck off."
Doubtful, anyways. Yeah.
They didn't even know his name.
No, it was just they detected mutant stuff, so they went to talk to him. And oh, how they could have changed the future if Logan just wouldn't have been a chain-smoking dank back
And there was
then.
a couple little things with Magneto. Some of the lines, just like I don't know karate, but I know crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That and
Yeah.
imagine if they were metal. Like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I did like that line from Trask. It was just like, this one's called Magneto. He controls metal. That's what all your guns are made of, isn't it? I just
Pretty sure that's what all your guns are made of.
Yeah, I just loved that line. It was great. But yeah, like I said, most of my problems come from just, heavy, like any superhero movie, heavy use of liberty taken, skipping over things that might not, need an explanation. Things like that. A few cheesy lines here and there, but overall, like, this is very solid, like a very solid piece, if you will. There's some weak points, but nothing that makes you just like, man. There's nothing laugh out loud like, it's my birthday from Amazing Spider-Man. Definitely nothing nearly that cheesy.
But direction and artistically speaking, it is definitely the strongest in the field. Bryan Singer does
I think this is
a fantastic job of his angles, and especially his kind of sweeping techniques, and especially in the Jennifer Lawrence scenes as Mystique, where she does the kind of flip under the chin, holding their heads on her shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
He does that more eloquently than it seems any other director for superhero films. Even when you watch something like The Avengers, the fight scenes are somewhat less stylized than in the Bryan Singer X-Men franchise.
He knows how to use special effects really, almost sparingly, even though I have to use them a lot given given the nature of the film. But he knows how to shoot things and angle things that it doesn't look flashy and cartoony, kind of like certain...
It looks more fluid and natural.
Certain scenes in the Avengers, and, it's kind of like... I call it Phantom Menace.
Be like water, my friend.
Yeah, I call it Phantom Menace syndrome, where you can kind of just... Everything starts to look just a little too cartoony when the CGI... But Bryan Singer knows how to, and ridiculous shit's going on here. Magneto's lifting a baseball stadium up with his hands.
It's very Christopher Nolan-ish in the style of the special effects on
there's
those
a good
scenes.
way of putting it. Very
Christopher Nolan-ish.
Nolan-ish. To any of our film fans out there, you'll know what we mean when we say things like, Christopher Nolan-ish. That has a hint of Aronofsky.
His style of damage seems very similar to something like Inception.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the buildings kind of crack up and crumble, the way that cars kind of get misshapen, or even in as much as we hate Michael Bay, he knows how to blow shit up. So his special effects and the way he makes them look realistic is very similar, I find, and it seems like he is definitely one of the top of the game in that field.
Yeah, he definitely knows what he's doing. Not overusing special effects, like if they weren't needed, they weren't in the shot. You don't see any, again, Phantom Menace syndrome where they're just jamming CGI crap in the background for no reason.
And that's the beauty of the Bryan Singer X-Men films over, say, I'm not sure who directed them, but the X-Men Origins or the Wolverine.
Those were a little too flashy.
You don't get any I'm fighting on top of a jet
Statue of Liberty.
Or Statue of Liberty, which that was his, but the way that they did that too, when you watch how he catches it, the way that they flip the camera.
Yeah.
The way he does things like that, I find, he has such a higher, it's almost like he's just maybe more into comics than a lot of the other filmmakers who have tackled comic book movies, but...
He's definitely, you can tell he's a kid at heart, the way he does certain things. I thought the stadium... landing around the White House that
was awesome.
I don't know if that's from the comics or whatever, but that's just a really clever thing for Magneto to do. Just barricades himself around the White House and then posts. There's some liberties using the railroad ties to control the Sentinels, but you have to just suspend disbelief. Magneto's a master of metal. He can do minute changes in metal all over the place. He's mastered his skill by this point. The Sentinels looked great too. I know you don't quite.
I don't like the future.
Yeah,
Sentinels.
you don't enjoy the future ones as much. To me, I did like the way they looked, but they had like a hint of Day the Earth Stood Still robot,
Yeah.
whatever that one's called, Klaatu, something like that.
Plain Jane. We'll call it Plain Jane because it's pretty much just a shiny metal thing.
Yeah, they were just shiny metal things, and the Sentinels from
They almost looked more like, and especially with how they shot their beams, it was more like the Destroyer from Thor.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, similar as well. Just like
their face opened up the same way.
Yeah, just like the way the day the Earth Stood Still robots, just these plain robots with just lasers coming out of their faces.
Whereas when you've seen the ones in the past, the Sentinels in the past, they were the purple and gray.
Yeah, they looked like
the
action
stomach
figures.
jets. Yeah, it was perfect. Those are the perfect Sentinels.
Yeah, I liked both of them, but the ones in the 70s looked awesome.
I've never personally seen any sort of comic book rendition of the future style of Sentinels.
No, not that you know.
Not that I've ever seen.
Do they have those the weird shaped ships as well in the comics? Like they
not that I don't remember seeing any ships, but
I don't know. I thought the ships were creepy the way they flew ominously, but I liked both. I think the Sentinels were appropriately scary. That's one thing about the future Sentinels. They looked like a faceless killing machine. They were appropriately terrifying if you were a mutant. And they just adjust to any old power.
That was interesting how they used the Mystiques, the whole key.
Yeah.
To
Mystique
Mystique
is very important to this film as well, and the storyline. It's cool. There's not a whole lot bad I can say about this movie. I don't think it will change superhero movies per se. Like it's not. I don't know. I don't know if this is gonna be the Schindler's List of superhero films. The one that revolutionizes it all.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe not, but this is solid, like a really solid piece. Is there anything else you want to say about X-Men: Days of Future Past?
Honestly, I think that if you are a big fan of the comics and essentially the Days of Future Past comic, especially, you'll still enjoy the story even though it's altered. You'll obviously have to get over the fact of Kitty Pryde somehow transferring someone's consciousness back into their younger self. But aside from that, it's a very, very solid standalone story in this film franchise that I think does a great job of connecting everything into a now solid movement that they can keep going on. Now they've actually got direction.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
They can take this a lot of different places with a lot of,
Yeah, so I'm excited. I think it's a step in the right direction for that film franchise. It's unfortunate that Sony can't do the same with Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, better luck next time, Sony. But this is definitely, I think First Class was an interesting experiment, and I think this is a definite step in the right direction, building off of what they did in First Class. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I guess it's rating time. I would give this movie an 8.5, I would say. Like, I enjoyed it a lot. Almost as much as Captain America. Like, I think this is probably... So far this summer, this is the second best film I've seen compared to right behind Captain America, but just barely, just barely. 8.5 for me. I really liked it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a 9. Like I said, I think it does a great job of connecting all of the films where they had almost no direction before, and to me, just that deserves bonus marks.
Oh, I agree. They all the different offshoots of the X-Men.
Like with the Avengers, they already had that path set in motion, so it wasn't as hard for someone like Joss Whedon to connect it like someone like Bryan Singer.
Yeah, Bryan Singer is picking up a lot of different pieces and creating a cohesive...
and a lot of those pieces are very shitty diapers left by other amateurish directors.
Amateurish directors trying to make a name for themselves, yeah. Well, I get it. Like, he had all the pieces there. He just didn't know exactly what kind of picture he wanted to paint. But it turned out very well. Like, congrats, Bryan Singer. I look forward to his next, apocalypse and whatever else he does in his career. I'm definitely excited. 8.5 from me. 9 from me. Big Nasty Productions. Anything else?
No, I think that about covers it all.
All right, thank you for listening to the Movieverse Podcast, audio-only edition. Sorry if you're watching on YouTube and you want to see our bouncing, lovely faces, but that'll hopefully return next time. In the meantime, you can check out my channel at youtube.com/habitualpixels. I do gaming, I do podcasts, I do all this fun stuff. And you can check out Big Nasty's channel, at youtube.com/bignastyfilms. And he does podcasts and soon to do comic reviews, sports reviews, and stuff with guns. Everyone likes guns.
Guns are fun.
Subscribe for guns, kids. And we'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.